Right, everybody. I would like to introduce our next moderator, Sabrina Halper. Sabrina, come to the stage. You have an incredible speaker faculty today. Shall I allow you to introduce them, or can I do that?
You can go ahead and introduce them. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you here. So we've got Nicole Sales, Felipe Lema, Joel Pons, Sam Simmons, and Hrish Lotlikar. I believe I pronounced it correctly. So guys, please come to the stage and take your seat on our comfy green sofas. Perfect.
Okay, great.
Well, that's a lot more than we thought. Whoever's name was not mentioned as a speaker, please get back to the audience for the time being.
I think it's everyone. We have 6 people on this panel, actually.
Right. Okay. Sorry, then my counting is bad.
Anyway, okay, so I am really excited to be moderating this panel today. I think we have an amazing group of people and like really diverse perspectives. So first of all, thank you everyone for being here at the NFT Festival. And for anyone new here, Connect Club is a platform for, engaging conversations and open discussions. And if you're just joining, I'm just gonna go over some really quick logistics and house rules. At the end, we're gonna give 15 minutes for any questions. We really wanna open the stage to you guys and for you to, get any questions you have out. At the bottom, you can go to a quiet place if you go by the grass. If you meet someone and you want to engage in further discussion, feel free to tap on people's profiles and connect with them during the speech so you can stay in contact. And you have a white circle, so you're going to be able to be heard and talk to anyone within your white circle. And then if you're on stage, you can be heard by everyone. So those are some of the nitty-gritty things. And yeah, I think, today we're going to explore NFTs as they relate to investing, business, art from, multiple perspectives. And we're also going to dive into how they'll relate to the metaverse because we have some experts here today. So let's get into it. I would love if you guys could each just spend a minute introducing yourself, who you are, what you do. And I'd also love if everyone could turn on their cameras, who's on stage, so we can see your face. So starting with maybe from left to right. So if you could just say who you are, what you do, and how you got into NFTs and that world.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Felipe Lema, and I'm the co-founder of Miss Frais project. I've been in the space since 2015. I've worked in as a head of growth for different big companies in the blockchain, mostly in the fintech area, but slowly moving over to the NFT space. And I've been with Black Moon, which was a tokenization platform, and Bitcoin.com just recently, and now founded my own project with a great group of friends. And yeah, that's about me. And then I'll continue and tell you more about what I do later on.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joel Ponce. I got started in the crypto space, I suppose, in 2017, and then frankly forgot about it for a while until last year when things started getting a little crazy and I started reading about crazy virtual land sales, and one thing led to another. I dove deep down the rabbit hole, and it was an incredible learning experience. I work at Viacom CBS, now Paramount, and at the moment my worlds are me as a collector versus my day job, and it's really interesting to get the perspective of both.
Hi everyone, I am Nicole Sales. I'm the NFT business director at Christie's. I've been at Christie's for about 10 years, predominantly in the post-modern contemporary art department. I've held various positions. The one right before my current role, I oversaw, among other things, our online sale contemporary art division from a business perspective. and happenstance, that was the channel where we sold Beeple's Everydays back in March of 2021. So that was within my team. And then ever since then, I have been 100% focused on NFTs and developing our strategy internally, managing our business development and our operational initiatives here.
Hrish,
hey everyone. Yeah, I'll go next. Hey, how's it going? My name is Hrish Lotlikar. I'm co-founder and CEO of SuperWorld. SuperWorld is a virtual world mapped on top of the real world. We're all in it right now. It's an augmented reality. You have a world, I have a world, brands have worlds. There's an infinite number of filters on the world. On the data side of what we're doing, we're talking about something called live to earn, which is how can we allow our users to earn crypto for everything they do in their real life. That's our focus as SuperWorld, is enhancing people's real life. And also our mission is, how do we build a better world? How do we leverage AI? How do we leverage the metaverse to actually improve the real world? And then finally, the third analogy is monopoly. We've divided the surface of the earth into 64 billion virtual blocks of land. Each plot is a city block covering the surface of the earth anywhere on earth. And if you buy a block, you get a share of any of the economics that happen there: advertising, e-commerce, digital commerce, data, analytics, and gaming. We have a mobile application. We're launching a token. We have an NFT marketplace. In summation, we're a virtual world on top of the real world, empowering people and building a better world.
Awesome. I'll jump in next. I'm just making a note here because I want to learn more about that SuperWorld once we're done here. So I'm Sam Simmons. First off, thank you Connect Club for having me and all of us. My background, it's basically crypto back to 16, 17 in a very passive sense. Really my professionally longest background in streaming media. So I formerly ran a poker content production company here out of Las Vegas, and then came upon to NFTs middle of last year, and then proceeded to quit my day job and pursue this full-time, whether responsible or not. All the while over the past couple of years or so have been investing in a variety of different startups across various industries. So now I'm just combining all of that smorgasbord of different things into what I'm doing now, which is Non-Fungible Ventures, which is a vehicle for investing in, advising, consulting with, et cetera, all the buzzy little terms for different NFT businesses. And all that is code just to say I'm kind of working on some cool stuff. So that's me.
What's up, y'all? My name is Kyle, and thanks for the intros, guys. It's really cool to be up here with y'all. I feel incredibly honored, and so really what I'm doing is I run an NFT podcast or a Web3 podcast, where my goal is to keep it as simple as possible. I focus more on the storytelling behind the art and behind the artist that is creating. So it's everyone loves to hear the alpha and the buzzwords and all these other things, but I'm just here to tell stories and hear stories and just be incredibly curious. It's funny that you mentioned that your team was responsible for the Beeple sales, Nicole, because that's actually how I was onboarded into NFTs. I was in that Clubhouse audio chat room with the Good Time Show, and when they had all of the buyers from that historic purchase. So I want to thank you for all the hard work that you did. But a little bit about me. Outside of this, I am in client success in a legal technology field. So it is a very fun, we'll just call it interesting balance between these two worlds, being at the pioneer in some of the highest innovations of Web 2, but also playing around in some of the fun Candyland world of Web 3 and getting to experience just the rapid pace of innovation here. It's incredibly exciting. I couldn't get enough.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for those introductions. I'm really excited. Let's dive into it. Also, everyone has a happy face at the bottom of their screen, so feel free to express yourself through those emojis. So my first question is going to be for Sam, and I want to talk to you. You started Non-Fungible Ventures, and it's a fund centered around the Web3 crypto blockchain space. I'm sure that you see so many projects pitched to you and run by your desk. And I'm curious about, how do you differentiate between an NFT project or an NFT collection, or even a technology based around the space that, how do you differentiate between hype versus like what's, worthwhile and has long-term potential? I guess, how do you evaluate the space? It's so new. What do you predict will stick?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I wish if someone knows, I hope they tell me, because I think all of us are kind of just passing judgment calls on a case-by-case basis. And really my barometer from a personal investing POV is, as an enthusiast, is really what I think is cool. So if it's something that I haven't seen before and something that I think is cool, chances are there's going to be others that think it's cool, and thus it's something that could actually become something big. And that's the simple answer. But the more macro view of the whole situation is, I really think, and this was a point mentioned on one of the earlier panels, I really think that the ultimate maturity of this industry is one where existing infrastructure is replaced. So as I look at different projects, what I'm most interested in is how will NFTs penetrate the masses in such a way that the everyday consumer isn't even necessarily aware that they're adopting NFTs. And I think that disruption is going to come in existing spaces like travel, hospitality, live events, education, and so on and so forth. So while it's fun, I mean, if I turn my camera off, my PFP is a Bored Ape, so it's kind of hypocritical for me to say that we're not necessarily hype driven. But nonetheless, as far as the investment side goes, my real attention is how we disrupt those existing industries through NFTs.
Definitely. And I'm just curious, could you kind of paint an example of like one industry that's right now pretty still traditional that you could see NFT sort of sinking into and change? Yeah,
sure. I mean, it's probably the low-hanging fruit, but I always like to cite ticketing and live events as an example. I think that, sorry, 1 second, I got to pop up here. I think that we all can relate to sort of the proof of experience model here, and thinking about how we not only like to enjoy and consume live events, but further recollect and appreciate those experiences in hindsight. And I think in terms of how they are adopted and how existing behaviors are modified through NFTs and made better, you can think about using StubHub or Ticketmaster and the like, and you have your digital ticket on your wallet, even on your Apple Wallet, and such really could already be an NFT. And the underlying technology that is beneath that sort of user experience of taking out your phone, scanning a QR code, and getting into a sporting event, for example, there's no reason why that can't be made an NFT. And there's a lot that solves around the secondary marketplaces, the scalping of tickets, becoming a revenue source on the secondary markets for various sports organizations and things of that nature. And that translates to a number of different industries and worlds as well, be it well beyond just the ticketing side of things. But that's always the one that comes to my mind, is I think the most obvious.
Definitely. Yes. And it's a space like ripe for innovation. And I think that would be really exciting. I'm starting to see like little trickles of that synergy. Well, thank you so much, Sam. I'm going to pivot now and ask Nicole a question. I want to ask you, so you're sort of like an expert at this junction between art and digital art. And I think traditionally a lot of the art world still hasn't sort of merged with the digital art world. And so I want to ask you a few things about that. I think, NFTs have sort of opened up this area for digital artists to finally sell their art. It's an outlet for them to monetize what they've already been doing for a really long time. And I'm curious, as someone that's part of the art market and helps set the price with these digital artists who may have been producing work for a really long time but didn't have an outlet, how do you set the price? How do you judge, what to start selling these digital artworks for? Because they might have less of a history in the market than, some of these pieces of art that have been around for decades.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. I think a lot of the factors that we look at are not too dissimilar from the traditional art market. There are comps available, and honestly, with digital art, being transacted on the blockchain, there's actually a lot more data available to look through that's publicly accessible than historically was ever available for traditional art market data. So there's definitely that. another big factor is community engagement. So when we're looking at artists to sell or artists to help represent and put on the Christie's platform and really use the Christie's marketing and reach that we have, we're looking to amplify existing communities. So they can be small, but we're still looking to, not create demand from scratch, but looking at, what's their social following, how do they engage with their community, what do the current owners or current followers think, and how do they interact with the artist or creator in an authentic way, and then how will that then be portrayed on Christie's, and how are we going to better tell their story on our platform? So I think those are the main things that we look for, and then of course we would love to have direct relationships with artists, which is very new for us and something that's really exciting, because historically we are, for more or less a brokerage house, right? We sell paintings on behalf of one owner to another owner. We're very rarely selling new art from an artist for the first time. So working with digital artists and NFT creators, it's been really exciting working with the artists in order to tell their story, as opposed to telling a story about the collector and all about the money. It's really about the artist and what they're creating.
That's amazing. And I think everyone in the audience is probably just very curious about what it was like being at the center of the Beeple's $69 million sale. I mean, I bet you have, so many different insights into the traditional art world. And then, I mean, this was really sort of a monumental shift and an inflection point for NFTs, I think. What was that experience like? What was the narrative from like some of your friends at Christie's and maybe more in the traditional art world, realizing like, wait, this is totally coming and we can't avoid it, and like digital art is a thing?
Yeah, it was crazy. Honestly, it was a complete momentum shift, both internally in our company and, among the traditional art world. Everyone took note, whether or not they were skeptics or not. Everyone had an opinion and wanted to talk about it. So, we decided to sell the NFT, and originally we have what's called our first open auctions, which are where we have more emerging contemporary artists. We experiment with different formats. So this felt like a good opportunity, and yeah, sure, we'll try it out. Somebody said to us prior to the sale, oh, I think it's going to go for $1 million. And we were like, wow, that is insane. There's no way it's going to go for that high. That's crazy. And obviously we all know what happened, but so we positioned the work at an online sale in an experimental format, kind of alongside our other emerging works. And we convinced our upper senior management to accept cryptocurrency, which actually was much easier to push through than I think I would have anticipated. We have really progressive management and really focused on innovation. So that was actually pretty seamless in order to get that over the line, and with our finance and compliance team. So that was an exciting thing to work on internally. And then as soon as the auction opened, it went from the first bid was $100. So that was the lowest starting bid, and it went from $100 to $1 million in 8 minutes. And there were about 42 bids, if I remember correctly, total on the work. And then in the last day of the sale, in the last 14 minutes, it went from 16 million to 69, with 3 or 4 different bidders competing.
Wow.
It was really, really crazy to watch.
Wow. What a moment to live through. Thank you so much. I want to ask Felipe a question about,
Sure.
So as Nicole said, now it's a really important part of standing out as a digital artist is growing a community around your work, whether it's a PFP or, a one-off NFT, and honestly having a following, and like any artist, but I think you specialize in marketing and growth, and with NFT collections and Web3 projects, this is such an important aspect. Do you have any advice for hacks or tips for people that want to build a community and excitement and hype around an upcoming project?
Absolutely. So one of the main things that, I think we've heard from this great panel of amazing people here sitting next to me, and you've probably heard this a few times, it's all about being able to tell a story. We have to remember that in the end, our consumer, or whether we're selling a project is selling NFTs or a service online or whatever it is, it always has to have a story around the product. because right now it is so important for people to understand where you're coming from, what you're trying to sell, and what is the value that that product will give to the community, right, and to the people that own it. So being able to do that and trying to like engage with your community and try to get their feedback and to get them to feel that they're part of, they're not just like, owning an NFT and that's it. And get them, to be able to, say what they think, how best they can, move your token and be able to, bring it to the next level. I think that's something that's really important. And also, this really creates value not only within the people that hold your token, but also the people that you partner with. Because as I've heard from the people that just talked in Nicole and from the second marketplaces, they always look at how projects engage with their communities. And if you put a face to a website to an NFT, an NFT to a story, then this really brings up some really good points on how you can really make sure that people have trust in you, they have trust in your project, and they become from they can be let's say that they start being, I guess, like collectors, and then slowly they even turn to advocates. And when you see that like the people that you've invested your time in start advocating for you within their own social groups and everything, that's something that's really it's something that's priceless. Really. And,
definitely. And I think one like sort of obvious example of that is people making their Twitter profile photos the NFTs they own. I think it's like becoming a piece of people's identity, and like their associations with certain NFT collections is like something they're very proud of, and Twitter's now like really enabling that. They just made it like an automatic thing where you can make an NFT a profile photo. So thank you for that. That's really interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, just one last thing, and it's really important to be able, and thank you Connect Club for having these kind of stages where people can actually come up and talk about their stories and so on. So
definitely, it's really cool. I love this. It sort of feels like something between Clubhouse and the metaverse. Like it feels very futuristic to be up here with you guys. So Hrish, I'm gonna turn towards you now. You've started a metaverse called SuperWorld, and my first question for you is that right now so many NFTs are stored in wallets, or they're on OpenSea, MetaMask, whatever it is, but ultimately like they'll probably be assets in the metaverse that people will be like wearing or showing or giving. And I'm curious, what are some of the ways that you see NFTs interacting with metaverses like SuperWorlds in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I think you're exactly right that currently, people are collecting NFTs in a variety of locations that are likely suboptimal for the real reason that they're buying the NFTs is to kind of share those NFTs with others, allow others to know what NFTs they have, allow others to potentially interact with those NFTs, gain value from those NFTs. Ultimately, as we think about NFTs, they're, again, programmable assets that can really take any form. And I think the most powerful forms that NFTs are going to take is that interactive aspect of those of the features that are available in an NFT. And so the first thing we need to do is unleash those NFTs from our wallets and get them into places where those NFTs can have that interaction with other people in our community, other people in the world at large. And so at SuperWorld, again, our focus is, how do we take all these technologies and enhance people's real life? So again, SuperWorld is mapped on top of the real world. It's all around us. And so back to the topic of NFTs, the idea is that we enable people to take those NFTs and put them in places that we love, that you love, that every one of us has places that we care about, places that we live, maybe go on vacation, maybe places that we work. And those NFTs that we're buying and interacting with have all of that, functionality corresponding to those things, whether they're for education, whether they're just for purely entertainment, whether they're, an NFT that allows us to have some kind of functional utility in the real world. Another thing I'd say at SuperWorld is, that is what we're focused on, is real world utility. And so the types of NFTs that we are creating at SuperWorld, we did an NFT that, gave the buyer lifetime access to a luxury club in New York and Miami called Custom House. We did a 3D yacht that was put in Monaco Harbor at the Monaco Yacht Show. And so those NFTs, very natively are meant to be in real world locations. We did another one with the World Bank in the Caribbean to raise money for the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Association for hurricane disaster relief in the Caribbean. And so again, I think that as we evolve in the usage of our NFTs, putting them in places where they have that interaction with real world environments is going to be important. And that's exactly what we do at SuperWorld.
That's very interesting. And then a follow-up question is, so you talked about, NFTs as they go into real world environments. I'm curious what you think about NFTs as they relate to going in between metaverses, because right now there's this big...
Again, I think of all of these virtual worlds as communities. As we think of SuperWorld, SuperWorld is often called the gateway to the metaverse, because we find that our user behavior is such that, people who are new to crypto, who are new to AR, VR, AI, any of these technologies, know places in the real world that they are connected to. So they buy, their home, they buy where they live, where they go on vacation. And then that's how they enter the metaverse, right? With SuperWorld being the first way they open up a wallet and put crypto on their wallet. And then they want to go into, DeFi, they want to go into, other virtual worlds. They might want to buy crypto on some other exchange. And so they want to, once you get in, you want to explore and do things. And so I think, that is exactly how I think all of us are going to traverse from one virtual world to another. And then to your question about NFTs, I think those NFTs are also, literally going to have to be interoperable. You're going to take them with you to other virtual worlds. You're going to be able to sell them in other places besides the place that you bought them or created them. And so the interoperability of those digital assets are very important. And obviously the tech is still, coming together and evolving. But I don't go away from, being able to frictionlessly buy and sell NFTs across virtual worlds.
Definitely. I really love what you're doing, because I think some of the most exciting, companies and communities in Web3 and crypto are the ones that are on-ramping people, because there's already a very strong Web3 crypto community, but I think it can seem like a very high barrier to entry. And so I love that SuperWorld is kind of acting as that gateway. I think it's so important, because so many of my friends, even if they work in tech but a different sector, still find, this whole universe to be extremely kind of intimidating, and like they don't exactly understand it. And on that point, I'd like to pivot to Kyle to ask you about, you host a podcast focused on exploring the future of Web3, NFTs, and the creator economy, telling the stories of these artists and these technologies. And I want to ask you, because I think a lot of people on the outside actually don't really even understand the value of a metaverse, in the sense that like living life virtually can actually seem more depressing, and like connections behind a screen. Like a lot of people feel that they would just rather live in person. And so for them, it feels like a this or that, like a one or the other. And I'm curious about what you see as like the great positive aspects of Web3 and what it can unlock for us as a society, because clearly you believe in it a lot, you're exploring it.
Absolutely. No, it's a great question. Before I answer that question, there was something that you brought up before that. I think it's a really important thing to touch on, is that you mentioned this or that, like virtual or physical. And I think it's been an underlying theme in just about, whether it's in my tweets, whether it's in my podcast, whether it's in any conversation that I have, we are so rigid in our decision making, where it's like a this or that. And it's been my narrative that I've been pushing it. Why is it not this and that? Why can't it be both?
Yeah.
You know, like it goes back to some of the just back to human psychology of like, if we tell ourselves we can't do something, then we're right. If we tell ourselves we can do something, we're also right. So the same thing goes with and, like, why can it not be both? And so that's been something that I'm incredibly passionate about, that because the word or closes doors, the word and opens doors. And there may be things that succeed and there may be things that fail. But the idea is that we need to explore everything all together. The world, I think we all go through a phase when we're learning something new, is that whether it's, and again, I'm going back to, I focus on a lot more of the human aspect, because I believe that even people that don't have a technology background or who aren't necessarily like super duper excited, this is going to help them as well. So this helps everybody, is that when you're learning something, or at least when I'm learning something new, there's a period of, oh my God, this is so challenging. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who to ask the questions to. I don't know the right thing. So I think part of that narrative is just part of being a human being, is that when there's something brand new, there's a lot of emotions that are being thrown around in the space, and there's a lot of new things that are being built at the speed of sound, quite literally. You know, it's natural to feel that massive level of discomfort and discouragement and depression of like, wow, like I heard this one narrative that it's going to be like Ready Player One, where our world has completely gone to hell, and we're all wearing Mark Zuckerberg's VR goggles, you know, and nothing matters but the virtual world. I think that's, you know, there's been too many coincidences in my life to say that anything, like, there's obviously anything is possible, but that's not something that I'm working towards building. And that to me doesn't feel very realistic. You know, it's something obviously that's an idea, and it's a narrative that a lot of very passionate enthusiasts can kind of grasp onto, because I think the most challenging part is that we are trying, as we're building, and some of the people on stage will probably agree with me, I hope so, but it's like we're building the plane as we're flying it. And so we're consistently looking for things to compare what we're building to. Like we're looking at comparing some of these tokens to like securities, and it's not that it's right or wrong, but that's like the only thing we have to go on.
Definitely.
And it's a very
on things that they might not really be comparable to, or even like
right.
I think the media has or just like film has so often like presented that sort of dystopian view of like
right.
Wearing the goggles and like you're attached to a machine, and there is no this and that. So no. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. And okay, I want to pivot now and ask Sam a question, because I think this is a question that I think would just help people out in the audience who want to start investing in NFTs. Do you view NFTs as like a long-term investment, or do you view them as an asset that you would like trade in the short term? And I know you're a venture fund, so you're also investing in technologies which obviously are long-term holds. But if you were to, you know, buy an NFT, like how are you going to track that and think about holding it versus selling it?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It's tough to answer, to be honest, because not all NFTs are created equal, as you might say. So it's hard to say this or that depending on the context of the situation. I will say, and I'll first say that nothing I say on this stage or off stage is financial advice, but I can speak only to my own journey. Thank you. So when I first got my start, I think like a lot of people, I'm sure there's others that can relate to this. I wanted to catch that next lightning in a bottle, and wanted to, like people say, what the next Bored Ape is going to be. And I wanted to find that. So I was buying up anything and everything I could get my hands on, minting this or that, the other thing, and got left holding the bag in a number of instances. And some stuff still sits in my hidden folder to this day. So that really, while I was spreading myself so thin through that process, it had me reposition my investing thesis, particularly on the sort of day trading side of things. I leave the institutional, more traditional type investing stuff separately, but I focus inherently on a track record of performance and long-term value and roadmap execution. So I don't necessarily chase that new shiny object, and certainly don't do so looking for a quick flip, but I buy into things that I know, projects that I know are strong and know how can perform and have proven a track record of performance, like I mentioned, over the course of a handful of months at least. But I also just buy things I enjoy. Like I've come to buy, rather than buy new projects, I buy deeper into projects that I love and love spending time in. And it's simplified my life in so many ways. So that tends to be my advice to people: is don't necessarily chase the pump, so to speak, and try to capture that quick flip, but buy stuff that you like and buy into communities that you enjoy being a part of. And regardless of what happens monetarily, you'll end up enjoying yourself along the way. And some might say an ROI on that is priceless.
Definitely. I've really personally seen how much joy people get off of like owning certain NFTs and, you know, showing it off. And it really is something that like they feel a lot of pride and personal connection to. So thank you. And Joel, I wanna ask you now, we haven't really spoken to you yet, but I think you have a really interesting perspective. And I want to ask you about the concept of airdrops in when you buy into some of these NFT communities, because I find them to be so unique compared to maybe like the physical world. So I'm curious about, could you further explain to the audience what airdrops are, how they're unique, and sort of like what they present and represent in the community aspect of like investing in NFT and like just, yeah. Could you
I mean, I think that's a great question. It's a really interesting topic too. I think at a high level, it's worth almost defining what an airdrop is and the different types of airdrops. So I'll start there. High level, an airdrop is essentially a project or individual that's working on a project that literally sends something to your wallet for free. You have to do nothing. The only necessary component is that you have a wallet, essentially. Now, not all airdrops are created equal, kind of like Sam was saying, not all projects are created equal. There are, I would say, at least in my view, 3 different types that I think about. There's an airdropped NFT, there is an airdropped token, and then there are things that are called airdrops that I would argue are claimable tokens, not true airdrops. And I think there's an important difference there, because that requires an interaction with a contract. And the reason I think that matters is there are both good projects and good airdrops, and I can give you some examples, but also malicious contracts. So if you interact with a malicious contract, your wallet can get cleaned out. That's part of the risk of this. So there's a lot of things to watch out for. In terms of purpose, and to your point, like, you know, what they serve to do, I'll speak, I guess, first on in the metaverse world, and then some interesting real world corollaries. In terms of NFTs, I think from the perspective of the project, they're there primarily to reward holders, number one, and then to create new entry points for people that are trying to get into those communities. So in theory, those airdrops would be worth less than the primary asset. They almost always are. And that allows new people to get in and the community to grow. In terms of airdrop tokens, and I guess the example that I'll think of right now is Frais, and that truly was a claimable scenario. I actually think of that kind of like a growth hack. You know, if you're the project, you're rewarding a certain behavior from users, and you're incentivizing them to use your platform by saying, hey, you spent X amount on OpenSea, you get X number of Lux token, and then you now have a stake in the success of Frais competing against OpenSea. So I think it's a really interesting growth hack in the space. I think marketers will use it often. I think people just need I think approaching this with skepticism is a good thing. Like, I don't connect my wallet to these things right away. I often don't connect my hardware wallet to it at all. And I know I'm leaving, money on the table, if you will, by doing that. But I feel much safer that my assets at least the hardware wallets are not touching those contracts. And I'll only interact with that with a hot wallet. So that's a high level overview. In terms of good examples and thinking about the story ecosystem, they allow you to dive deeper into the story. So the example that I get the most excited about, and it's everybody dives into certain communities, is Artifact Studio. And most recently, not only do people have clones, but they now have this pod ecosystem, and they also have this monolith. And there's literally this questing adventure that people are, diving into all the time to solve a quest to figure out what's in a box, and then creating, furniture for their pods and apparel. Like the pods almost are looking like they're going to serve as a virtual store, and that's going to serve an interesting utility that will, potentially allow them to be an entrepreneur in their own right.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sort of defining and clarifying and touching on, what airdrops are and what they mean. Yeah, I still think it's a space that everyone's kind of figuring out. It's a really interesting concept. But I find it very cool and cool to see where it could go. I hadn't thought of the malicious intent, but yeah, you're right. Especially with the recent OpenSea phishing scandal and dilemma, definitely it's good to be very aware, especially as you're
This
in
is
this
something
cool
actually.
space. Yeah.
This is actually something that it's very important that we bring forward. Now, going back to that question that I had about growing your community, you really have to understand the people. Who are you targeting in terms of like when you're talking to your community? Like, if you think about it, just right now, I think it's about only 4% of the world's population is using crypto, and that's really nothing. And we're still growing. So as long as like all these projects, marketplaces, people feel free to ask these questions like, what is an airdrop? Like how do I best pay? What is the Solana blockchain? What is what are all these little terminologies which we think that are common use and people know about it? You'll find to realize that actually a large population of them still don't know, and sometimes they're too scared to ask or too ashamed. But it's something that I think it's the project's responsibility to bring that up and
definitely
knows what's going on.
And I think on that point, I would actually be really curious if each of you guys could just sort of, if you have something to say on this point, when you first heard of the space and got interested in it, what were some of the ways in which resources you turned to like help yourself learn more about it? And just for the audience, because I think everyone wants to know more. It feels like there's infinite points of this new world to learn about. If you guys could just each go around and sort of just, if there's any resource, podcast, book, person that maybe has helped you, and you don't have to speak on this because we're wrapping up and I have a couple more questions, but I think I'm always looking for new resources to learn more.
I'll dive in real quick.
Yeah.
There's a really good podcast that Kathy Hackle has with Adweek. I'm looking at the name right now. It's called Metaverse Marketing. I actually think that's a really good primer. It goes step by step on various elements. So again, podcast is Metaverse Marketing and Kathy Hackle is there. There's also various good posts. A particularly good one is Metaverse 101 by Megan Loist. And then the Metaverse Primer by Matthew Ball is incredible, but a very dense read. But in general, I have found for me, diving into Twitter Spaces, previously Clubhouse, and now, Connect Club, having these conversations is really the best. Learning from each other. I mean, it doesn't matter how long you've been in the space, there's something new all the time. You're always learning. I think anybody that deems themselves as an expert and tries to stick it out like that is falling behind very quick. And I think run from the hills when you hear that. But in general, tons to learn all the time. There is a lot going on, but I think it's also find the thing that where you want to start, and then go one step at a time. Don't try to take everything in all at once. And it's okay to not know everything. You're going to miss plenty of things, and just find the areas that you love, like Ben said.
Definitely. I actually am so sorry, guys. We only have 8 minutes to get audience questions in, and I want to make sure that people who have been thinking throughout this and listening get their chance to speak. So I'm actually going to open it up to the audience now, and I think Ina will help me. So if you guys can just go to the sort of outer rim of the stage if you have a question. I believe this is.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
What a great panel. my arm is sore now. I've been making so many notes. But I'm in the presence of greatness, so I'm going to have to ask Nicole a question, if I may.
Sure.
Nicole, within our fast-growing community here, time and time again, we have an incredible talented photography artist. And there is always this conversation, is photography an art? Because it certainly didn't start it as one. But I think it's all about to change with the help of your team in May this year. So are we about to see the most expensive photograph to be sold ever in the auction? Of course, I'm referring to Man Ray's original print of Le Villain d'Angre.
Yes. So that was we're very excited for that photography sale. Nothing to do with NFTs, but I do think so that's going to be super exciting. Everyone should tune in and watch. But in the photography NFT world, there's also a lot of interest, and we are actively developing our strategy for how we can better engage the photography digital artists. So photography as a medium is ripe for NFT technology to be used to enhance the value of photographs, particularly digital photographs. As we all know, I think it's perfect. And we actually just launched today. We just announced a sale that we literally like an hour ago posted, where we collaborated with Quantum, Justin Aversano and Chris Graves' platform. We collaborated with them, and we co-curated a photography NFT sale showing 6 Black American photographers to celebrate Black History Month. It's on Christie's.com right now, and very, very accessible price points, like $3,000 for minimum for all of these. So go check them out. We also have a Zoom panel event tonight at Christie's if anyone's in New York. Yeah, so that's really exciting too. So go photo NFTs.
Thank you for that.
I just want to comment on that real quick, because I've actually interviewed a lot of high-end photographers on the Super Rare team, or on the Super Rare platform. There are some very cool things with photography that when you put it into the digital realm that are not able to be done in the current world. Just an artist that I'll have everyone check out here. Arguably one of the best innovators in the space. His name is Ben Strauss with 2 S's, and I'll just tell you, one of his main thing is coding his smart contracts to allow the photograph to change on whatever time of day that you're in, and the metadata will automatically load. So even if you can test it out with a VPN and you can see it for yourself, but the photograph will change, the landscape will change each like based on whatever time zone that you're in. Not only the sun cycle, but even tested one out with the moon cycle as well. So I think that there's a very cool, like she said, it is ripe for innovation. There's so many cool things that can be done. And if y'all want to check out some of those unique ways, definitely check out Ben.
Amazing. Awesome. So now, Ina, could we go into our next question?
Yes, we have Joanne here. And Joanne, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Joanne Canosa. I was a founding member of a payments company powered by Ripple, and now consult for companies in the NFT crypto space and working to drop my first NFT collection. But this question is really for anyone on the panel. Now we're seeing a lot of companies hiring for chief metaverse officer. Do you believe a majority of companies will be adding this position to the traditional C-suite, and what are the most important roles that you believe the CMO should be responsible for as we look into the future of metaverse and Web 3.0?
I'll mention something briefly. I do see that role more and more, so it seems like it is happening. There's a lot of complexity, especially for the global players. Speaking from a personal perspective, whether it's us at Paramount or Disney or Fox or whoever, not only do you have the challenge of who makes up that team and it's a house of brands really, but also how do you treat that globally? I think it's an interesting challenge. If you try to centralize it and do too much, for example, let's say you try to manage it all from the US, I don't think necessarily that's ideal. I think you probably want to have the local communities that develop that IP manage it or lead the efforts locally, but everything you do is global. So I think you're going to have some sort of group or committee that is a global group and committee in case of these global brands. And there's going to have to be a ton of communication and collaboration. And I think many of these players are going to have to think more like gaming studios. I think, world building and thinking about gaming economies and things like that are going to become ever more important.
And just one more answer to that is, I work in VC and I've seen a lot of companies and spoken to a lot of founders that are actually trying to be that bridge between the metaverse and these traditional brands, whether they be in like fashion or e-commerce or whatever it is. And so I think there's going to be, a lot of businesses built out of being that bridge between companies that already exist and have a big following and helping them get into the metaverse, basically helping them create digital assets. But in the long term, eventually, I can definitely imagine that every fashion house will have a whole team dedicated to digital designs.
I'm gonna quickly just to have some fun. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
I think that while the industry is in its nascence and the metaverse is very much a novelty right now, I think that there's going to be some handholding required, which will come via a chief metaverse officer or something of the sort. But and I hate to use the word, but almost mundane, as the metaverse becomes more mundane in that it becomes more common as a medium for digital interactions, e-commerce, whatever it may be, I think that you're going to start seeing those skill sets being absorbed into existing C-suite roles, almost like you wouldn't see a chief internet officer necessarily. Like the metaverse is just the medium for transacting, for doing business, that while it requires training today, I think as we see more and more people becoming digitally native, I think that it becomes a sort of, I guess, it becomes something that's absorbed into roles that exist today.
Totally. Very interesting perspective.
I have something to add. I just something real quick to add to that. I think, from my perspective, I still think it's almost very early to even think about what a chief metaverse officer even means. I think we're still so incredibly early in the space to there's some companies where it does make sense, but I've actually had the thought of what if you empowered just someone who's already working for your brand, who's obviously got their attention on Web3 and who may not be focusing on their current day-to-day tasks, and give them something to research on how you can develop the strategy for NFTs. Does that even make sense for the brand? Does that even make sense for the company? Because I think that's a really important role where you can empower some people that are currently working for the brand or for the business and allow them to grow into that. Because I still think it's so early to define what a chief metaverse officer actually means when, some of the technology is still very clunky and there's still a lot of work to be done. But being able to grow into that role and define it as you go along could be the blueprint for a lot of other brands as they're entering into the space.
Yeah, my thought on this is, similar to I think what other people are saying. I think, there is a bit of semantics around, the term chief metaverse officer versus, chief marketing officer or chief technology officer or, whatever it is, and whatever the company is doing and how important, virtuality or physical, virtual physical is to the company. But I think overall, there's a lot of innovation that is in front of us, as others have also said. And as a company that's looking to reimagine their business, and I think what this is, as we think of the metaverse, is the opportunities to reimagine one's business, regardless of what business you're in, and incorporate, these huge ideas of, the digital, concept of bringing those two things together. And so, because of that, because of the opportunity, I think you're going to find companies want to designate someone who's capable to kind of lead that business line, because I don't think it's going to be, again, have overlap with marketing and, other core business functions. But because I think it's big enough, I mean, it's huge, right? The opportunity, if you're, trying to recreate things virtually and be able to monetize and utilize Web3 and all the other things that the metaverse really stands for. I think because of that reason, it's probably smart for companies to build out a role, build out a team to go tackle it. Now, eventually, when it becomes commonplace, when, the metaverse becomes the standard for how a company does business, it's how they think of their business, how all businesses think about it, then I think it'll probably again be underneath a bigger, more generalized functional role.
Definitely. Thank you so much, guys. I think right now there's another panel starting in about 30 seconds in the virtual art space on Connect Club, which is amazingly cool. I've hosted a panel there before, and then we're going to go explore all the NFTs with Miss Frais projects. So please, everyone, now you can exit this room by going to the bottom and scrolling all the way to the right. We don't have to all leave now, but we want to get that one started, and there's amazing speakers there. So that's going to be an awesome experience. Sorry we have to wrap up so quickly, but this has really been such an interesting panel. Thank you, Josie, for your question. Clearly there's so many different ways that the future can go, but it's awesome to be in a room sort of discussing it and predicting it and engaging with it. I think that's the most important thing, is that, we encourage everyone to engage with this. And thank you for sharing all your perspectives and for being here today and for answering my questions. This has been really, really interesting.
I also would like to thank Sabrina for a wonderful moderation. Always
Fantastic.
a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
I encourage all our participants to use on the bottom left-hand corner, there is an arrow pointing down, so you can come out and see under ongoing events, the open gallery. So please come and join. This is one of the most exciting rooms we've got within this space. This enables you to also understand how we're supporting artists in their NFT journey, especially when it comes to promoting their artwork. So look forward to seeing you all there. And thank you again to all the speakers. Thank you again for the wonderful moderator. And let's continue this discussion in the gallery.
Amazing.
Thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.